Hi folks, welcome to another episode of I Want to Know, the show dedicated to our town, the people in the town and how our town works. I'm honored today to be having Randall Chittenden joining me. People in town probably know him better than anybody else I've ever interviewed because he has a Facebook page, North Brantford Community Pride. Very good. And you know, there's 17,000 people in town, 18,500 members of your page. So he knows how to market his stuff, and that's how I got really in contact with him, because I know I was struggling to figure out how we can get more than 42 viewers of this show. Saw how many people are members of his page, so I decided to contact him, and we really vibed really well. I said, well, why don't I just interview you? And, he's really an amazing person. He lives in town, but he's a firefighter, a captain in Brantford. He's been there a long time. So why don't we just start, you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then we can, maybe, discuss, what you do in Brantford, and then we can pivot back to, the amazing stuff you're doing here too.
Well, Dan, thanks for asking me to be on your show. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
My honor.
My name is Randy Chittenden. I'm a fire captain in the town of Brantford. I've been involved with Brantford for 30 years. First 9.5 years was a volunteer with the Hook and Ladder Company. I started applying in different departments about 5 or 6 years into the volunteer time. I was hired in Brantford in 1999 as a career member. Went through the paramedic program, became a paramedic, went through the academy, and about 3 years ago I was promoted to captain.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
So that's after being there for 25 years or something?
Well, 30 years total, but the career side is 21 years.
Right,
yeah.
Okay. And you've only been a firefighter in Brantford?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
I grew up actually we moved around a lot when I was young. I was living in Brantford when I was born, and as a toddler we moved out. I moved into New Haven, Guilford, back to New Haven, Meriden, Wallingford.
Wow, you really did
West Haven, yeah. And ultimately graduated West Haven High. I went to Southern for 1.5 years. I studied accounting. I decided that accounting was...
Accounting, firefighting?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't involved with the fire department then, but as I was going through the program, I think I would find myself sitting behind a desk my entire life looking at books. And I'm an active person, and I would not be able to sit behind a desk.
Right, caged animal syndrome.
So I had worked at Richland's for about 12 years. I was one of their managers. I worked the parts counter. I would help people with their parts and diagnosing their problems with the cars. I really enjoyed the interaction with the public.
Right.
I became a volunteer firefighter in 1990, and that opened up a whole different world of possibilities for me.
What did you start out? You started out as a volunteer.
I started as a volunteer. I took an EMT program in 95, and I started applying at different departments. I'm really glad that I was hired by Brantford. Brantford is a unique department. It's very progressive. We went from, at least when I started volunteering, it was a 4-person shift, and we're now up to a 10-person shift.
Wow.
And we're in a new building, probably one of the largest in the state of Connecticut.
It's beautiful.
It's great. A lot of possibilities with that building.
Well, it's great because it's a multi-use building, right? Like
Yes.
upstairs you have community space.
Yes, community space, they have meetings, and then there's other offices, more office space than we had before. And
Sure.
We can house more personnel downstairs, a larger kitchen area. During times of storm, we can prepare a lot of food to feed when we have to hire back additional personnel, or we'll have the volunteer stations show up, and we can, like I said, feed greater numbers. So it really works out. We have a lot of equipment. Confined space rescue equipment, we have hazardous materials equipment, we have ropes and extricating equipment. We've done a very nice job outfitting our department.
How many different satellites do you have also? Because you have Stony Creek, Pine Orchard, correct?
Yeah. We have MP Rice in the center of town in Short Beach, so 4 other outlying stations.
Right, okay. And are they volunteer or
Yes.
are they paid? Okay.
No, they're volunteer.
How many paid positions does Brantford have right now?
40
on the firefighter side.
It's 40, so there's 10 per shift, so it's 4 shifts, that's 40. Then we have 2 administrative positions upstairs that are under the union, and then we have the assistant chief and the chief.
Wow, okay. So, you've seen a lot over 30 years. What has changed over that period of time that, off the top of your head, how have things changed? What you do, how you do it, regulations, I guess, and standards change.
Yeah, every time someone is hurt or every time someone dies, they look into what we could do better.
Right.
We have the 2 in, 2 out rule. We're not supposed to go into a burning building unless we know that there's a life to be saved. So when the risk is high, when the danger is high, the risk, we'll risk more to save what can potentially be saved.
Right. Technology is changed.
Yeah, technology,
for sure.
Our air packs, we have a heads-up display. It tells us where our air is at in our air pack, so we know.
Wow, neat.
If we're halfway down, we can start thinking about getting out and being replaced with a fresh crew.
Wow.
The apparatus, so it went from when I started volunteering, we're still riding the tailgates on the fire trucks. I never had the opportunity, but we still have some of the volunteer stations that could do that. So we're not allowed to do that anymore. We went from open fire trucks to closed fire trucks.
Right.
Protect our hearing, protect from debris on the road. It also makes it easier for communicating to the personnel when we are responding to an incident as we lay out our game plan.
Right, wow. Okay, so you live in North Brantford, and how long have you been in North Brantford?
Coming on 18 years. February will be 18 years.
What attracted you to North Brantford?
Value of the home with the amount of property. I was intending on raising at least 2 children. Right? That was the goal, right? So we have 4. So a big enough property where they can play with friends, not get bored. Where we live, the road's not that busy. We're a little bit off of Route 80.
Because you've seen a lot, as you were saying, you moved all around the region from New Haven and West Haven and stuff. So the conditions in all those towns were really different from where you are now. You have more space, it's quieter.
Yes.
You're probably able to have a larger home than you would in West Haven, for example.
True, yeah. So we have 4 kids, 3 boys and a girl. The unfortunate thing with North Brantford is they don't have a main street.
Right.
So, like Brantford, for example, has the main street. Right, the green, right? A place to hang out and have activities and stuff. But I think that North Brantford makes up one way or another, either through the people, the community. The Poco Fest, for example, did a nice job with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's been kind of a down year with COVID.
Yeah.
But, we're making up for it in other ways, hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully it's like a good reset. So your involvement in the community, do you volunteer in the community?
I run the page.
That's right, right?
Yeah, the North Brantford Community Pride.
What was the precipitous for starting this page? I mean, because every community has 14 pages, and they're all, some are non-political, some are political, some are very nice, some are vile. So what inspired you to start your own page?
Well, joining Facebook years ago, when pages started coming around, and realized that there was one for Brantford, and I had lived in Brantford probably the most. North Brantford now is, I'm living here more than I have than other communities, but Brantford at that time. So I wanted to,
the length of time you were
right. So I wanted to know more about Brantford. So there was a page called Growing Up in Brantford, and joined that, and people would post pictures, old pictures. And I kind of remember walking, by the old MIF before they went out of business, with my brother was a baby and I was a toddler, but bringing back memories of what Brantford used to look like. So when I moved to North Brantford, I had searched out the page for North Brantford, and I joined that. It was a little political. I wouldn't say it was political. It goes back to the days when they're trying to get the propane facility in North Brantford.
Yep.
And the propaganda that was being pushed back and forth, people were mean to each other, angry, and I wanted to do something better.
Right.
So I had started my page, and just the rules were like you couldn't hate each other, you couldn't bully each other. You had to have a picture with who you are or something that we can validate you. And it started with 125 members, and we're over 4,500. It's been 6 years, and
Wow.
It's tough.
How much time does it take to be an admin for a big Facebook page, right? I mean, because whenever somebody wants to post something, it goes through you first.
No, everyone's allowed to post freely.
Okay.
The only time it becomes a problem is if you're
flagged by somebody.
If you're bullying people and stuff like that, then we'll mute you. And I hate to be that person, honestly, but I don't want to host anything that's gonna cause
the downward
violence.
spiral
Right.
that you wanted to avoid when you started the page.
So we'll mute people, and it'll kind of send a message. Sometimes they'll reach out to me, and I'll get an apology. Like, sorry, I understand now. You're right, and we'll release it and then let them back in. And then there are the people that make the fake profiles, and
Wow.
they'll come in and they'll wreak havoc for a little bit. And as you can tell with news, what sells news? Negativity.
Right, sure.
And sometimes
Maybe that's why I only have 14 viewers, because there's nothing
too
negative
positive,
about it.
right? No, I know.
Too positive.
So, yeah, when it goes off the rails, sometimes I'll let a post sit because, like I said, I don't want to be that one, but I'll let a post sit knowing that it's heading
be
down the
hot.
drain, right?
Yeah.
And I'll let it sit because sometimes I hope that people will go back and look at what they wrote. And then one of them went up to 700 posts. And it was just completely trashing each other.
Oh, wow.
And then I took it down and I put a note up. But sometimes I find if I put a note up, I'm just attracting more people to respond to it. So sometimes I'll just quietly just take it off.
I've seen that. I didn't see that post, but I saw all the responses, and then it got taken down. I was like, I missed all the fun because I didn't see the post, and I was trying to figure out what it was.
Some of the ones, if I wind up removing somebody or muting somebody, I'll screenshot the stuff, and then when they ask why, and then they'll insist that they weren't bullying, and then I'll send them a screenshot of their post.
Kind of were.
And circle it, and we're a community page. We're not here for
Right.
for you to wreck it.
And the thing is, this is why we both love this town. It's because people are great to each other.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter about politics. It doesn't matter about your color of your skin or anything. We are nice to each other. So that should carry through in everything we do to each other, whether you're in person or whether you're behind a keyboard, for heaven's sakes, or your phone, right?
Yeah.
So why is it different? I don't know.
I think it's easy if you don't see the expressions. And when you're on a keyboard and you're not in front of an individual, it allows you to finish a sentence, a thought. And I think those people feel comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm. Even though those thoughts and sentences probably shouldn't be said or thought at all.
When I set the page up, I really thought I'd set the page up and allow people to run it. So it'd be like news for the people, by the people. I might actually copyright that slogan. But,
right. It may have been done.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is kind of like facing the same thing, because he legitimately started Facebook because, he was like, this is about community, and it's about, making the world a smaller place and people getting to know each other. But now, it's as big as it is, you lose control over it, right? And a lot of it, it can be good and evil at the same time.
So, people feel they have First Amendment rights in a group, and I don't think people realize that First Amendment rights only apply between you and the government. I mean,
right.
You wouldn't walk into the Elks Club if you were a member and start spewing venom.
Sure.
You'd get taken out. You
right.
can't go into a grocery store and just stand on your soapbox and
right.
and air your dirty laundry.
Right.
You can't do that,
Right.
And so it's the same thing. We're a community page. It has rules, and anything else, you could start your own page. As you know, there's many others. And the funny thing is that
this is it, man.
It's funny though, because people will set up their other pages, and the rules are very similar. And so they want you to speak freely, but then you can't bully people, you can't be mean, you can't do this. So they just simply got mad at me or mad at somebody else and started their own page. And that's where the Northford page came from. That was a spoof of all the pages. So it was a blend of all the pages was their name.
But is that their name? I mean, it's not fair, they're not in the room. But were they the page that started up saying, be negative here? Like, if you want to be mean here, and we can tolerate that?
I think there was a little bit of a twist, but they don't tolerate people bullying each other either.
Okay.
I actually know them very well. And they, they're very good at it. They don't allow any politics on their page. I'll allow something, but if it becomes polarizing or creates a lot of opposition, then I'll either shut it down or take it off, because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to host the hate.
Right, exactly. And isn't that a shame, though, because politics is, it affects our lives, right? So how do we find the space? I would like to be able to find the space where we can talk about politics and have a really nice, respectful discourse, and but then leave shaking hands or elbow bumping today, and respecting each other for that difference.
Who's your favorite baseball team?
Well, I'm from Cleveland.
So there's absolutely nothing I can say about Cleveland that would get you to change your mind?
You're right, no.
So I look at politics. The harder you push with politics, the more people are going to plant their feet and resist change. And
Understanding, though, but to your point, though, that was a really, really good analogy. But I understand that, Cleveland isn't perfect, and it has its problems, right? So, I mean, political parties are imperfect as well. They're as imperfect as humans are. So we can, wouldn't it be better if we could, understand the imperfections, acknowledge them?
Can you imagine a bar full of Yankee fans and Boston fans in the same bar and arguing and fighting about who has the best team? It's almost the same thing with politics. And nobody's going to listen, nobody's going to change. And there are a few fans that will have the dialogue back and forth, and more or less to jab each other, but politics becomes far more serious.
Mm-hmm. Far more personal.
Yes.
So you're saying it can't be done?
Or
you're really skeptical.
Like you said before, it takes the right people.
Right. I mean, we do. Yes. I mean, we listen to, people that, their expertise is politics, and they discuss what's going on, but they're not us, right? We're not experts. We run on impression, right? And we know what
perception,
impression.
Yeah, perception, right. And that's probably most of it is. And where do we get that information from?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Social media, the news, and what does the news want to publish? What sells?
Right. Negativity. So that I mean, we've gotten so far away from, we have alternate truths now, and nobody agrees on what the truth is.
You got to be a good researcher.
You got to know the facts.
You got to want to research.
Right.
You got to be open.
Well, yeah, and you have to be open to dissent, right? You have to be open to people disagreeing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. When I was on town council, everybody up there, we didn't agree, often, but we all had the same goal. And that's what makes it fulfilling.
What's best for the community as a whole.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think that's a good example where, Republicans and Democrats can work together, and when you have the same goal, you can work together and from different angles figure out the best way possible. And chances are, when we come from those different angles, we do have the best result. Like the school, for example, right?
Yep.
You were talking about the school, and we have other, projects in town that we're, vetting, a new police department, whether we should build new or refurb the school, and everybody's going to have a different opinion. So then how do we all digest all the information we're given, or that we can find, and then come to the best result for the town at large? The police chief did a really good job of, explaining to the people, we have a wonderful facade, but inside we have a lot of serious problems that are putting people at risk. Yeah. So, I guess we have to have the same, discussion with the school, which is ongoing. But then, it's an example of how people from different angles come together and find the best solution for the town as a whole. So we can do that. That's an optimistic thought.
Definitely, I think my opinion is we should replace the school. I think it's best for property values overall.
I agree with you.
I don't want to be short-sighted on what my taxes are going to be. For the amount of money it may or may not increase over the next 20 years or 30 years when they may decide to sell or hang out. But we got to look at the long term.
And we were talking before the show, and it's like that's why we moved here, is because of the town, the atmosphere, and the education. That because we're relying on a good education for our kids to have a step up and be able to compete on a global scale. And the infrastructure here is definitely lacking. So we kind of really have a commitment to them to give them the tools that they're going to need to compete in the real world. And seems to me a new school is really where we should be going with
I think it would be the right thing. My mom actually was the first graduating class.
What year was that? All right, no,
1968.
Wow, really?
Yeah, whenever, right, that's when the school opened.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And so then that's 1968, infrastructure, 52 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and plus you look at the region, Clinton, all the, the region, Brantford, Brantford's redone a lot of its infrastructure, Clinton, Guilford, Madison. We have to compete too as a town.
East Haven, yeah.
East Haven,
New Haven, yeah.
Right, New Haven has a bunch of new schools.
Yep.
So, we have to look at the competitive edge as well. I mean, we have to be able to sell ourselves as a community worth looking at when you want to buy.
Yes, I agree.
So what else? So tell us a little bit more about, where you want to see your Facebook page go and where you'd like to see the town go. You're probably pretty happy with it.
Yeah, the page is going well. We had to, like I said, have some conversations with some people, and the page is doing what it's supposed to be doing. People are contributing to events in the town. It's pretty much where I want it to go. I actually don't know where we can take it from here.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe we could start a page where people can talk about politics without being bullies and without with civil discourse.
I'd even allow that because I don't have that in the rules about politics. I thought I did when I had said no politics, but somebody was kind enough to send me a screenshot of my own rules. It was not in there, but the rule that did apply was anything that creates opposition. So if something political went up and the conversation went back and forth.
So you'll just monitor the conversation?
To the best of my ability,
yeah.
Because there's not a lot of admins and moderators. It is all voluntary, so it's when there is time. And sometimes somebody will report something and I won't get to it for 6 or 7 hours. But that's in the rules as well. We're limited to internet access.
Sure, and the fact that you have a life to live as well.
True.
You're working, you have a family.
Yeah.
You can't be there all the time. How many admins do you have?
6, I think, total.
So when somebody, I really don't know how this works because I've never done that. So when somebody has, a question about a post, does it go to you and the other 6 admin at the same time, or
so if they report it, any of the other moderators or admins will get a notification.
So all of them will.
Yeah, in their own email and of course on their Facebook app. I'm usually the one that responds to it. I added on other moderators to kind of like sort of assist. I have one other one that he does a lot for me, and he'll send me a message right away. And then I'll either let him take care of it or we'll agree to let it sit.
Okay.
And but yeah, it is a lot of work and it does consume some time and it's tough to manage time.
And then you're making just a bunch of judgment calls, right?
Yeah.
And you're just doing what you think is best for the page.
Yeah.
And the community, right? And the person may not like that.
Right. True. And then it's my views or you get accused of. Biasing, right, and then that's not...
Okay, but then, I don't know. Then they can go away. Then they can find, as you said, they can start their own page.
Right.
Until we just, have market saturation. I don't know if we're there yet.
4,500 pages.
Right, for sure. Well, see, so you've kept people happy that there aren't another 4,500 pages. You have 4,500 members.
Yes.
So they're all happy and they're all satisfied.
Most of them are from town. There's a few that live in other areas of the country and they're from here. And then there are some that are from surrounding communities. So I belong to Guilford and East Haven and North Haven and Wallingford because it kind of gives me an idea of what's happening in those towns too, especially
connected, right?
In the way of crime.
For sure.
So when we hear something's going on, then sometimes I'll share that here too. Like,
right.
Don't leave the keys in the car, and this is happening, right?
Sure.
And so we bring it onto the page, and I'm sure that other people in the surrounding communities do the same thing.
Well, so I always, try and ask the people that I have the pleasure of having sit with me, what do you like best about North Brantford?
Honestly, I have to say the people. I think that the smaller community, a lot of people know each other. so there's a connect. The sporting programs, we've been fortunate to have the coaches that we've had,
Right.
that work with the kids in our scouting programs.
Right. They're wonderful qualities. Well, thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege. I appreciate it.
I hope I have a couple more people liking my show since you're here.
Thank you.
And no, really, honestly, I really respect what you do in town in Brantford. You're a true hero.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
First and foremost.
Thank you.
And you're awesome for doing the Facebook page. You really help out the community with information, keeping people connected and behaving. It's a tough job, but you're doing it. I really appreciate that as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, that's another episode of I Want to Know. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you here again soon. And thank you, Randall, for joining me.
Thank you again.